Chris Marzelli here for Kingdom MMA at the Hydro Arena in Glasgow, Scotland, ahead of the Fight Night weigh-ins. I'm here with Brian Stann. Brian, first and foremost, welcome to Scotland.
I appreciate it, man. It's a beautiful city. Excited to be here. I actually had to request this card, about 4 months ago to get this one. Just I wanted to see Scotland, so I'm excited to be here.
So you'd been doing much of the sights of the city and whatnot?
No, because despite my experience, I have made the mistake, and jet lag gets me every time I fly this direction. So was able to just the local area here in Glasgow, dinner last night, and see some stuff. I'm hoping tonight to do a little bit more, and then maybe tomorrow morning before the event.
So we're here at the first ever Scottish UFC. I mean, what's your take on that? I mean, it's a massive deal for us here in the UK. How big a deal is it for the UFC?
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. When I first started fighting in the UFC, you'd never thought that the type of global expansion would happen that fast. I wasn't surprised by it necessarily from a business standpoint. Where I am most impressed, though, is how fast the sport's grown to where back then you were getting quality mixed martial artists out of really a couple of areas. You had the U.S., you had Brazil, you had Canada, and you had Michael Bisping, right? I mean, there wasn't a whole lot else. Now all of a sudden, we're going to different places. I called fights in the Philippines. We had several kids from Southeast Asia that were fantastic. We're here in Scotland. We've got several fighters that are from Scotland that are on the card, and they're well-rounded mixed martial artists. They're not singular, one-faceted fighters. And so I think to me, that's cooler than the business growth of the whole thing.
So, we saw the scenes in Ireland. The fans were going crazy. Are you anticipating similar scenes here in Scotland?
I hope so. When the fans go crazy like that, it helps the fighters kick into another gear. There's something special when you're in the locker room and you haven't fought yet, and you're coming up and you hear them, you hear them chanting, you hear them screaming. Wow, it's totally different, and I think it can make for a really special night. So hopefully we get some of that. There's a couple fighters who are anticipating it, and so it'll be cool. It'll be really cool to see.
So you briefly brought up Michael Bisping, a man you know well.
Yeah.
He's headlining this event. How do you see that fight going between him and Leites?
Well, it's going to be an interesting fight. I think that there's a few things that are really favorable for Michael Bisping, and the number one thing is that it's 5 rounds. When you're fighting a guy like Michael Bisping, you're fighting a guy who's technically extremely proficient. He's almost surgical with his striking and his precision and his footwork. And for Leites, we know what he's good at. He wants to hit you hard in the feet, but ultimately he'd like to drag a guy down to the mat and get him into his world. It's tough to do with Mike. Mike doesn't stand in one place, and Mike puts a lot of volume on you. He puts a lot of pace on you. Leites is completely aware of that. He's trained for it, so it's an interesting matchup right now where you got Leites who wants to get another shot at the title, and Bisping, who's been there so many times, just almost there. So I'm excited to see it. I'm excited to see. I think Bisping will probably get under his skin a little bit here at the weigh-ins. It's just part of his game plan, and getting his guy's head. So it'll be fun.
So at the media day the other day, Michael was talking about working his way back into title contention. But of course, we've also got Luke Rockhold versus Chris Weidman. How do you see that one going?
Man, that's going to be a fantastic fight. Chris Weidman is still getting better, which, if you're someone like me who watches a lot of tape, has to break down a lot of film, it's hard to believe. He's still improving. He's still, when you look at his record, doesn't have that many fights in the game. And so is Luke Rockhold. It's a fight that both guys can beat each other. And that really, it comes down to that on a lot of nights. And a lot of nights, if you were to watch 2 people fight 3 times, the same person rarely would win all 3. And so it's going to be interesting to see how Chris uses the wrestling advantage. Can he control Luke Rockhold when they get on the feet? Can he hold him down, which is very hard to do? And then how big is Luke Rockhold's advantage on the feet? Luke feels like he's the far better striker. Can he capitalize on those moments, and can he defend the takedowns of Chris Weidman? That's really what it all comes down to. And I could picture that being a 5-round bloodbath where both guys are winning rounds, and it comes down very similar like when GSP fought Johnny Hendricks. Everybody was arguing, well, this round should have gone this way and this round should have gone that way. I could see Weidman Rockhold being that kind of debate. where people really are left afterwards saying, well, one, we want to see it again, and two, arguing over who exactly won each round because they're just that good.
You know, of course, we're here in Glasgow, Scotland. We do have a few of our own fighters on the card. Joanne Calderwood, last time out, disappointing night for her. What are you expecting from her this time round?
Well, you know, I'll tell you, I think she got caught in her last fight, you know, and she's got a late replacement in Courtney Sanchez, and it's not an easy draw. You know, this girl, Courtney, didn't come here to kind of lay down in front of the hometown girl, and when you evaluate the tape, Courtney's good, you know, so I think this is a decent test for Joanna, and she's got a lot of pressure on her as well. When you fight in your hometown, there's a lot of expectations. You got a lot of family. Sometimes that makes it harder, you know, where fighters always say, oh, this is my dream come true, blah, blah. It's not your dream come true until after the fight and you've already won. You know, beforehand, you got people wanting to get tickets off. You got everybody in the media wanting to do interviews. So I think this is a real test for JoJo. And if she comes out on top here, I think it's going to be an experience that really can carry her through the rest of her career, because she'll never have, until or if she gets a title shot, the amount of pressure on her like she will tomorrow.
And just finally, I mean, you tend to cover a lot of these European cards with maybe some fighters that aren't particularly well known. I mean, what kind of preparation work on your part goes into a fight card like this?
It's a lot of film study. I've spoken to every fighter on the card, you know, starting since last night to talk to them, get their perspective on the fight, get their perspective on their opponent, get their perspective on their training. You know, because ultimately my job is to represent them, right? My job is to tell you all about them without speculating, without BSing people, and I take a lot of pride in that. You know, they're the stars. We had this amazing weekend with UFC 189 last week, right? And they had new graphics. The lighting was cool. You know, they had bands playing walkout songs. All that's great. But the real reason that show did so well is because you had a bunch of men and women that went inside that octagon, and their fights were awesome. They were awesome. So ultimately, all this other stuff is cool, but it comes down to them, and you know, they're who I represent when I speak, and so they deserve me to understand their information and do my best to represent them.
Thanks, Brian. Thank you, my friend.